We will now consider log number 5534 by Mr. DeLuzio. For what purposes, gentlemen, seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Will the clerk please distribute the amendment? Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with. I reserve a point of order against the amendment. The gentleman is now recognized to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is to update the Insurrection Act dating back to 1807, and because of issues with waivers, I will ultimately withdraw, but before then, I'll yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from California, Ms. Jacobs.
Thank you, Congressman DeLuzio. In Los Angeles, we've seen excessive force, questionable detentions, intimidation tactics, and legal rights violations by our military, and that's just a glimpse of what we could see nationwide if President Trump invokes the Insurrection Act and turns U.S. troops on civilians. Now, right now, the statute is vague, archaic, and ripe for abuse. Our amendment fixes that. It narrows and clarifies the criteria for the domestic deployment of military troops for law enforcement purposes. It specifies that the use of the military is a last resort and is authorized only if the use of civilian law enforcement authorities would be insufficient. It clarifies that the law cannot be used to suspend habeas corpus, impose martial law, or deputize private militias to act as soldiers, and it requires a justification for the use of this law and consultation with Congress prior to its invocation and explicit congressional authorization if it is used for longer than 1 week. These are simple, thoughtful fixes to respect the rights of the American people and prevent an abuse of power. I sincerely wish we were able to truly debate this crucial issue tonight. And if we had been, I would have strongly urged all of my colleagues to support this critical amendment needed to protect our democracy regardless of which party you're in. Because honestly, without real reforms on the Insurrection Act, it feels like we are all just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic all night tonight instead of addressing the actual issues at hand. So unfortunately, we are not able to do that. And I thank my colleague, Mr. DeLuzio, for yielding time, and I yield back to him.
I thank the gentlelady. As I said, Mr. Chairman, because of a lack of waiver, we'll be withdrawing, and I yield back to the chairman.
Gentleman withdraws his amendment. We will now consider log number 5297R1 by Mr. DeLuzio of Pennsylvania. For what purposes, gentlemen, seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk, Mr. Chairman.
Will the clerk please distribute the amendment? Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with. I reserve a point of order against the amendment. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized to describe his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief, and this amendment is an easy one, and we'll welcome colleagues in both parties here to work with me in the future on this. This is about giving the Pentagon and the Secretary more of a say, more of an ability to weigh in when we see mergers and acquisitions that could harm competition in our defense industrial base. I think there is broad agreement here that we need more competition in our defense industrial base. We need new entrants and new companies coming into the defense industrial base, and we need to make sure that there aren't transactions that are reducing competition. Unfortunately, was not able to obtain the waiver we would need from the Financial Services Committee, but I think this is a place we can work together. I look forward to doing that. Because of that lack of waiver, Mr. Chairman, I withdraw the amendment. I yield back.
Chair thanks the gentleman for withdrawing his amendment.
Representative Sara Jacobs voiced strong concerns over the outdated and vague nature of the Insurrection Act, warning that its current form leaves the door open to abuse. She pointed to troubling incidents in Los Angeles, where excessive force, questionable detentions, intimidation tactics, and violations of legal rights had already occurred. Jacobs cautioned that, under certain leadership, these same abuses could be deployed nationwide if U.S. troops were turned against civilians. The proposed reform aimed to narrow and clarify the criteria for domestic military deployment, ensuring it would only be used as a last resort when civilian law enforcement was insufficient. The measure also explicitly prohibited suspending habeas corpus, imposing martial law, or deputizing private militias. In addition, it required a clear justification for invoking the law, consultation with Congress beforehand, and explicit congressional approval if the deployment lasted more than a week. Jacobs emphasized that these were common-sense protections designed to safeguard the rights of the American people and prevent unchecked executive power. She expressed disappointment that procedural hurdles blocked a full debate on the issue, arguing that without meaningful reform, Congress was merely avoiding the real problems at hand. In her view, the moment called for action to protect democracy, regardless of political affiliation, rather than cosmetic changes that failed to address the root dangers.